Hi everyone, welcome back. This is video 5, the second half of our hooks deep dive. Last time we covered useState, useEffect, and useRef. Today we finish this series useMemo, useCallback, React.memo, useReducer, useContext, and all the newer hook like useTransition and useSyncExternalStore. So 20 questions, simple answers. Let's get started. So, what is use memo? Use memo caches the result of a calculation. It only redoes the calculation when something in its dependency list actually changes. Use it for a genuinely expensive work like shorting a big list. For something simple, it's not worth it. What is use callback? So use callback caches a function so the same reference is reused across renders. This matters most when you are passing that function down to a memoized child component, otherwise a new function every render defeats the memoization. Use memo versus use callback. What's the real difference? Both work the same way. Underneath, they only recompute when a dependency changes. The difference is just what they return. Use memo gives you a back a value. Use callback gives you back a function. That's really the whole distinction. When should you not use memo or use callback? Skip memoization when the calculation is already faster, when the dependency changes on every single render anyway, or when you are just adding it out of habit. It's not free, it only pays off when it's solving a real measurable problem. Can excessive memoization actually hurt performance? Yes, generally, every use memo or use callback still costs something. React has to check the dependency array, every render, sprinkle it everywhere without a clear reason, and you add complexity and overhead without any real performance win. Profile first, then memoize where it actually helps. How does React.memo actually work? React.memo wraps a component and skips re-rendering it if its prop hasn't changed. It checks each prop with a shallow comparison. If everything matches, React just reuses what it rendered last time instead of doing the work again. React Memo versus Use Memo, how are they different? React.memo works at the component level. It can skip a whole component's re-render. Use memo work at the value level. It skips recalculating one specific value inside a component that's already rendering. So different scope, same underlying idea. Uh, why can a memoized component still re-render? React.memo only blocks the re-render caused by unchanged props. It won't stop a re-render from the component's on state changing or from a context value it reads. Changing and a fresh object or a function passed as a prop, every render still looks different even with the same data inside. What is useReducer? So useReducer is another way to manage state using a reducer function state and an action in new state out. It's a great fit when your state logic gets complex or when several related values need to update whether in a predictable way. Use state versus use reducer, when do you pick which? So use state is very simple. uh, use We can use state for a simple independent pieces of data. Reach for use reducer once your state logic gets complicated, several values that update weather or transitions that depend heavily on the previous state. It keeps those updates predictable and easy to trace. What is use context and how does it work as a hook? Use context lets a component read a value from the nearest provider above it directly, no manual passing and no wrapper component needed. Any component that calls use context on a given context re-renders whenever that context value changes. When can context cause performance problems? Context re-renders every single consumer when its value changes, even if a component only cares about one small part of it. It gets worse if you use context for fast changing data or bundle unrelated values into one big object. We covered the fixes for this backend video to splitting context and memoizing the value. What is use layout effect? Use layout effect runs before the browser paints a screen and it blocks that paint until it finishes. So that makes it the right tool specifically for mirroring something on screen and adjusting it before the user never sees a flicker of the wrong layout. What is imperative handle? Normally, a ref gives direct access to a DOM node. Use imperative handle lets a component customize that, exposing only specific methods you choose instead of the whole node. It's always paired with forwardRef, and it's generally rare in everyday code, mostly used inside reusable component libraries. What is forwardRef? Normally, ref isn't treated like a regular prop, so it can't just be passed down. ForwardRef fixes that. It lets a parent attach a ref straight through to a child's actual DOM node. You will see the constantly in reusable component libraries. What is user ID? User ID generates a unique ID that stays stable across renders and correctly matches between server rendered and client rendered output. It's mainly used for accessibility, linking a label to an input safely without risking ID collisions or mismatches. What is use transition? Use transition lets you mark a state update as non-urgent so React can work on it in the background without freezing the screen. Urgent things like typing in an input, stay instant is pending tells you when that background update is still running. What is use deferred value? Use deferred value is closely related to use transition but for a value instead of an update. So it lets a value lag slightly behind the real one, so typing stays smooth even if that value feeds into something slow to render, like a big filter list. What is use sync external store? Use sync external store lets React safely subscribes to data living outside of React, like a browser API or a state management library. It exists mainly to prevent UI inconsistencies with React News concurrent features. Most developers won't call this directly. It's usually used inside library like Redux or just stand. What is use insertion effect? Use insertion effect is the earliest of all the effect hooks. It runs before use layout effect, specifically so CSS in JS libraries can inject style before layout is measured. In everyday app code, you will almost never use this directly. It exists mainly for library authors. So that's a wrap for video 5 and for our full hooks deep dive we covered use memo, use callback, react.memo, use reducer, use context and every newer hooks worth knowing for an interview. If the series helped you, drop a like and subscribe. Let me know in the comments what topic we should cover next. Form, TypeScript with React or something else. Thank you for watching. See you in the next one.